These on, remember we always when you first take the covers off, take a nice picture of everything as it sits before you remove anything. There's this unusual 5-post positive bus connection sits on top of the battery. I got the battery thing. You make sure you take the negative terminal off first. Tuck it away over here, put it underneath and back behind there, and then start removing these. Fold all those back out of your way. Their negative terminal just up underneath there to keep it out of the way. This one right here takes a 13. All the rest of these take a 14 millimeter. Very easy to remove. Just make sure you've got a deep socket because these bolts are very long and a short one won't reach down far enough to remove the nut. I had to also take loose the battery hold down. It's this little device here. This bolt right here. That bolt goes right down through the middle of this. I also had to take this nut off of the overflow tank right here. This overflow tank has one nut down at the bottom. You might be able to get it away without doing that, get it out without doing that. That gave me just a little bit more room to move the overflow tank to the right this way in order away from the firewall to get the battery out. The other thing you'll have to do is take your 13 millimeter and loosen this end of the crossbar. You can just leave that one in and take this end of the crossbar brace completely off. The nut stays on the back of it. You can see it's built in, so you don't have to worry about dropping the nut. Just loosen that in. Take this nut completely out. That is this one here. Again, that's a 13 millimeter. And then just move the entire brace off to the side. I had to tilt my battery this way up and then take it out at an angle out of the hole. We'll just reverse it going back in. We'll put the battery in, clamp it down with that. And this. Tighten that back down. Once that's tight, then put this plate back on top of the battery. You're going to also need a 10 millimeter. This was the jumper that went from the battery positive terminal right here over to this bus. So you got to take this 10 millimeter loose, this nut right here on top. You just lift it off. And you can see exactly how to put it back together. You don't want to guess on these and put them in the wrong place, especially with electrical. So we've got this main lead comes in, goes on the bottom, doesn't matter whether it's top or bottom. And then this one from the side comes in on top of it. We'll put a nut on it. That's empty. It was when we started. These two each get their own terminal. So that's sitting nice and flat. Make sure it's flush, same height all the way across. Sitting there nice and flat on top of your battery. You can see right there, it's all flush. It's not sitting crooked. Before we tighten that up, we need to pull this brace over, put it back through here, put the bolt in it. Before we do that, we're going to take the battery cover. Got a little tab on it right here that goes down underneath on this. Pops on there. Gotta make sure that clamps there. That covers and protects our positive terminal so we don't touch it with a wrench or anything. We'll do all this before so the negative was the last thing we put on. The grounding wire was the very last thing. Now we're putting the covers on. We have our cover here for this battery bus. Pop it into position. I don't know if I had when I took it off. They're a little cracked there, so maybe you'd be more careful. Now we're going to move this bar over and reattach it. It simply comes over, goes underneath. Get the hole lined up there. We'll get one of our 13 millimeter bolts. It's already got the washer on it. Just line up your two holes. Pull the bar over with your hand a little bit. Again, do these by hand as much as possible. We'll get them started for sure so you don't cross thread them. Get them all the way down to where you can only do it with your hands, and then we'll put a 13 millimeter. We'll tighten here, and we'll tighten here, and then we'll go see if it works. Okay, I apologize for the redundancy here. I'll try to edit the video and make it shorter. When you're getting near the end, putting everything back together, remember we got a 10 millimeter that we need to tighten up. That holds the radiator overflow bottle. We did that one right there. That bolt is the clamp that holds the battery down. The battery is not moving. Jiggle it around just a little bit. Not moving at all. It's nice and tight. Those are all tightened down. 14s and a 13 millimeter. Okay, the last thing is we're going to take our battery grounding terminal, which just simply grounds to the frame of the car, and that comes over here. I'm going to actually route it underneath this one just so it'll fit better, and slip it on top of that one. Again, I put WD on a lot of things. I shot these terminals, even though they're super clean, with a little bit of electrical cleaner. And you can see that 10 millimeter right there is facing it. And we're going to use our long set of wrenches to get down in there and snug up that 10 millimeter, make sure both the terminals are tight. You got to make sure that it's inside this track guard. There's a little guard, there's a lip here and here. The battery needs to be securely there, and then you'll put the clamp back on the other side. This is pretty long. This is about a 7-inch extension, but I coupled it with 2 more shorter extensions to put the 13 that goes down alongside, to put the a little light like this is extremely helpful because very hard to see. That's the hole we're going into right there with our bolt. Battery going to this bolt right down here to tighten it up. It's a lot easier to reach. And we want to make sure from our original video that we put these back on the correct terminal. They can't just go in any terminal. This one was empty. These are the 14 millimeters and this is the 13 millimeter. Just as a side note, I'm sure most of you know your remote starter on your Cadillac and most any other car will not work with the hood open. So you don't accidentally get your hand in the fan belt or something and start the car. So if you try to remote start it from here, it probably won't work. So we're all buttoned up here. Everything's tied down and tight. Got no bolts left. That's always a good thing. I'm gonna close the hood. Hit the remote starter, which you get the lights, and there's a horn. I'm gonna hold down the remote starter. And there you go. It's running. That's the end of the battery install. Sorry the video's long. I'll try to edit it out and keep the content that we still need. Please comment below if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.